According to the tears you shed in silence, the Lord has kept a record. Heaven has never been blind to your sorrow. It has never turned a deaf ear to your cries in the middle of the night. Every tear that slipped down your cheek when no one else saw, God saw. And He didn't just see it, He remembered it. Sometimes we mistake God's silence for absence. We assume that because justice hasn't come quickly, it isn't coming at all. But that's not the way the divine works. The book of Psalms says, "You keep track of all my sorrows. You have collected all my tears in your bottle. You have recorded each one in your book. You have recorded each one in your book." Psalm 56:8 NLT. This means not a single drop of your pain has gone unnoticed. Not a single betrayal, insult, or abandonment has slipped past the eye of the one who reigns over heaven and earth. Why then does He wait? Why does He let the unjust thrive while the righteous weep? Why must the faithful suffer while the wicked boast? These are questions that echo through time, cried by prophets, apostles, and saints. But the answer, though mysterious, has always pointed to one truth. God's timing is not our timing, but His justice is always sure. In the book of Revelation, the souls of the martyrs cry out, "How long, sovereign Lord, holy and true, until you judge the inhabitants of the earth and avenge our blood?" Revelation 6:10 NIV. And still God tells them to wait, because the fullness of justice requires patience. You see, divine judgment is not born of vengeance, it is born of truth. And truth, unlike lies, does not rush. If you have been carrying pain that others laughed at, if your heart has been broken in places too deep for words, know this: God is not just aware, He is preparing. And His preparation is always layered with purpose. He is not only going to heal you, He is going to reveal what they did to you. He is not only going to comfort you, He is going to confront those who delighted in your sorrow. But here is the condition. The fire of divine judgment does not fall on command, it falls on faith. If you keep trusting Him, that is the key. Because trust is the bridge between your pain and God's justice. It is trust that allows you to let go of revenge. It is trust that keeps your heart soft while the world grows bitter. It is trust that draws a line between the one who suffers with grace and the one who wounds with pride. The prophet Isaiah writes, "But they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength." Isaiah 40:31 KJV. Waiting, in God's language, is not weakness, it is spiritual warfare. It is a declaration that you believe God is more capable of bringing justice than your hands ever will be. Every time you choose not to retaliate, every time you bite your tongue instead of lashing out, every time you walk away from those who mock you, you are building up a testimony of trust. And heaven does not ignore those who trust. The day is coming. It may not be tomorrow, and it may not be the way you expect, but the one who saw every hidden wound will move. The one who sat beside you in silence will speak, and when he does, those who laughed at your tears will tremble at his truth. Let them say what they want. Let them do what they will. Your role is not to fight back. It is to hold fast. To trust when trust seems foolish. To believe when belief feels fragile. Because the judgment of God is not just coming, it is being written with every tear you cry and every injustice you endure. Now, let's reflect on the journey of trust and judgment in these 7 ways. God keeps a record of every tear. It is one of the most comforting yet overlooked truths in Scripture. God keeps a record of every tear. When David wrote in Psalm 56:8, You have collected all my tears in your bottle. You have recorded each one in your book. He was not speaking metaphorically for poetic effect. He was giving us a glimpse into the personal intimacy of a God who notices the small, silent moments that even we ourselves may forget. The sleepless nights, the hidden breakdowns in locked rooms, the smile you forced when your soul was breaking. Every tear you've cried has weight in heaven. Think about that. In a world that often rewards the loudest voice and the boldest actions, God measures the quiet tears of the brokenhearted. He doesn't just see your suffering, He documents it. Like a careful scribe, He writes down what others dismissed. He stores what the world deemed irrelevant. Why? Because your pain matters to Him more than your performance ever will. God is not the kind of king who only watches victories. He watches your valleys. His attention is not limited to platforms or public prayers. It stretches to the hidden places where your faith was tested and your heart was cracked open. Each tear you shed in silence becomes a testimony. And while people around you may have mocked you for being too emotional or too sensitive, God called it sacred evidence. Evidence of your endurance, proof of your battle, a case for your reward. We often underestimate how closely heaven is intertwined with our emotions. In John 11:35, we read the shortest verse in Scripture. Jesus wept. It's short, but it's thunderously powerful. If the Son of God could be moved to tears, then surely your tears have divine significance. He understands the language of sorrow. He walks with those who mourn. He is not distant from your suffering. He dwells in the middle of it. There is a reason God doesn't overlook pain. Pain is where the soul is stripped of every illusion and made bare. And in that nakedness of the spirit, something eternal is shaped. The Apostle Paul says, "For our light and momentary troubles are achieving for us an eternal glory that far outweighs them all." 2 Corinthians 4:17, NIV. That word, achieving, tells us that pain is not passive. It works, it builds, it creates depth in you that comfort never could. And so, every tear becomes part of a greater tapestry, a divine narrative in which the righteous are never forgotten. You may not realize it now, but those moments when you collapsed in prayer with nothing but tears, those were the loudest prayers you ever prayed. You didn't need words. You needed to be seen. And you were. Not by the world, not by the people who walked away, but by the only one whose eyes matter. So, if ever you feel that your tears are wasted, remember this. What man disregards, heaven treasures. The bottle of your sorrow is not a symbol of weakness, but of recorded grace. And when the time is right, that bottle becomes a flood not of more pain, but of divine response. For God does not collect without intent. He collects because judgment is coming. Divine judgment comes with purpose, not speed. There is a divine tension that exists between pain and justice, between what we suffer and when heaven decides to respond. We live in a world addicted to instant gratification. We want instant relief, instant resolution, and most dangerously, instant revenge. But God's judgment is never rushed. It is never impulsive. It is purposeful. And that is what makes it terrifyingly beautiful. When the children of Israel groaned under the weight of Egyptian oppression, God did not immediately deliver them. Their cries rose to heaven for generations. "I have indeed seen the misery of my people," the Lord said to Moses in Exodus 3:7. "I have heard them crying out, and I am concerned about their suffering." God saw, heard, and cared, but He also waited. Why? because judgment to be holy must be full. If God strikes too soon, the fullness of truth is not revealed. If he strikes too late, the righteous lose hope. But when he moves at the right time, his justice not only corrects the wrong, it reveals the truth to the world. You see, divine judgment isn't just about punishment, it's about purpose. It serves as a mirror to those who think their actions are hidden. It brings clarity to those confused by betrayal. It lifts the fog and says, here is the truth. That's why God sometimes lets the wicked grow in their pride for a season, like Pharaoh, who thought he was untouchable, like Haman, who built gallows for the innocent, like Judas, who kissed the Savior and still thought he was clever. All of them were allowed a stage until heaven pulled the curtain back. But while judgment is slow in coming, that does not mean it is sleeping. It is building. Each injustice, each false accusation, each cruel word spoken behind your back adds weight to the scales. God doesn't miss a single one. And when he tips the scale, it doesn't just fall, it breaks. Yet here lies the greater mystery. The delay is not only for the enemy's exposure, it is for your preparation. Had God answered your pain in the moment of your anger, your character would not have been ready to carry the justice he was about to deliver. The waiting is not wasted, it is sacred, because during that wait, he refines you, he heals you, he strengthens you. He makes sure that when the breakthrough comes, it doesn't break you. Ecclesiastes 3:17 says, God will bring into judgment both the righteous and the wicked, for there will be a time for every activity, a time to judge every deed. Notice the emphasis, there will be a time, not your time, his. And that's what trust is. It's saying, I won't fight to prove myself, because I know God will prove me in his way. So, when you feel like judgment is overdue, ask not, why is it delayed, but what is it preparing? Because divine justice is not a knee-jerk reaction. It is a strategic unveiling of truth that leaves no doubt as to who was right and who was wrong. Trust is the bridge between your pain and God's justice. In the long, silent valley of suffering, when justice seems like a distant dream and your enemies seem to win without consequence, there is only one thing that holds your spirit together: trust. Trust in God is not a mere feeling. It is the bridge between the agony you endure and the divine justice that has yet to arrive. Without trust, pain becomes unbearable and justice feels like a lie. With trust, even the darkest season becomes a womb for something holy. Many confuse trust with passivity. They think trust in God means doing nothing. But that's a grave misunderstanding. Trust is not weak surrender. It is spiritual warfare. Trust is resistance against the urge to retaliate. It is the refusal to stoop to the level of those who betrayed you. It is the act of saying, I will not be defined by what they did to me. I will be defined by who God says I am. That is strength, not weakness. That is faith that carries fire. Psalm 37, 5-6 declares, Commit your way to the Lord, trust in him, and he will do this. He will make your righteous reward shine like the dawn, your vindication like the noonday sun. That passage is not poetry, it is prophecy. It reminds us that trust activates divine response. It doesn't rush God, but it pulls his promises closer. Because when you trust, you step out of the way and let heaven work without interference. But the hardest time to trust is when you feel invisible. When you've been wronged and no one stood up for you. When your name was slandered and your silence was mocked as weakness. When those you loved the most discarded you like a problem instead of protecting you like a gift. These are the moments where trust feels like standing on a bridge during a storm. The wind howls, the water below rages, the wood creaks. And still, you stand. You believe that even if everything else falls apart, the bridge will hold. God will hold. The enemy of your soul wants you to believe that your pain is meaningless, that trusting God is foolish, that your tears are wasted. He whispers, if God really cared, why hasn't he done anything yet? But you must recognize the voice of the serpent. He told Eve that God was withholding good. He's telling you the same. But it was a lie then, and it's a lie now. Trust is also what separates the righteous from the bitter. Bitterness is what happens when we demand immediate justice. It poisons the heart and clouds the soul. But trust cleanses you. It keeps your hands clean and your conscience clear. When you trust God to deal with your enemies, you don't have to carry the burden of revenge. You don't have to spend your nights plotting how to make them feel the pain they gave you. Instead, you rise above it, and God takes note. In the end, trust turns pain into purpose. Every tear becomes a seed, and every act of restraint becomes a testimony. Your quiet endurance speaks louder in heaven than the loudest cry for vengeance. And the most beautiful thing about trust, it brings you closer to God's heart. Because when you trust him in silence, he trusts you with victory in public. So build that bridge, plank by plank, with every whispered prayer, with every time you choose kindness over cruelty, with every moment you forgive instead of retaliate, and walk it with your head held high, because trust is not just a bridge, it is the path to your destiny. And on the other side, justice waits. Your silence in suffering is louder in heaven than screams on earth. In the world we live in, silence is often mistaken for weakness. People see your lack of response, your unwillingness to lash out, and they assume you've accepted defeat. But in the realm of the Spirit, silence is not weakness, it is strength under control. It is a shout of faith that echoes louder in heaven than any scream on earth. There is a sacred kind of silence that God honors, a silence that flows not from fear but from trust. It is the silence of Jesus before Pilate. When false accusations were hurled at him, he didn't defend himself. He opened not his mouth. Isaiah prophesied, Isaiah 53:7. Why? Because he trusted the Father to vindicate him. He wasn't silent because he lacked defense. He was silent because he was the truth, and truth doesn't panic. In your moments of betrayal and heartbreak, when others twist your story and mark your restraint, your silence speaks volumes. It tells heaven that you are not placing your trust in public opinion. It tells the angels that your faith is rooted in God's character, not man's approval. And it tells the enemy that his attempts to provoke you into sin have failed. It's not easy to remain silent in the face of slander. Everything in your flesh wants to respond, to fight back, to prove your innocence. But there is a higher calling, one that asks you to suffer quietly so that justice can speak loudly in due time. Ecclesiastes 3:7 says there is a time to be silent and a time to speak. Your time to speak will come, but your silence now is planting seeds for a harvest of vindication later. There is divine power in restraint. The book of Proverbs tells us, even a fool is thought wise if he keeps silent, and discerning if he holds his tongue. Proverbs 17:28. When you hold your peace, you let God fight the battles you cannot. You remove yourself from the courtroom of human judgment and place your case in the hands of the supreme judge. And heaven does not ignore the silent. On the contrary, heaven draws near to them. Psalm 34:18 reminds us, "The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit." Your quiet cries have reached the throne of God. Your whispers in the night have been heard by the one who shaped galaxies with his voice. And he is not still because he is indifferent. He is still because he is preparing something greater than noise. He is preparing justice that will thunder when the time is right. The world applauds the loud. The world rewards those who fight fire with fire, but God exalts the humble. He lifts those who trust him enough to remain quiet while others shout. Your silence is not a sign that you're being ignored. It is a signal that you are being watched carefully by heaven, and heaven always rewards those who suffer righteously. So, don't let the noise of this world fool you. Don't measure your worth by the applause or attacks of others. Hold your silence like a sword, knowing that the same God who heard the silent prayers of Hannah, the quiet strength of Esther, and the tears of Job, hears you, and in his time he will speak on your behalf. And when he does, the world will fall silent. God's delay is a setup for a greater glory. When God does not move according to our expectations, we are tempted to believe that he has forgotten us. We look at the silence and interpret it as distance. We assume that his delay is proof of indifference. But in the kingdom of God, delay is never denial. It is divine design. The glory he is preparing often requires more time than we are willing to wait, but once it arrives, it will make sense of everything. God is not slow, he is intentional. 2 Peter 3:9 tells us, "The Lord is not slow in keeping his promise, as some understand slowness. Instead, he is patient. His timing serves a higher purpose that is not always visible from the valley you're walking through." That long stretch of unanswered prayers, misunderstood pain, and silent suffering is not wasted. It's working towards something eternal. From Themberg, something unshakable. Consider Lazarus. When word came to Jesus that his dear friend was sick, he didn't rush to heal him. He waited. He let the situation worsen. He allowed the pain to deepen, and only when death had already wrapped its cold fingers around the man did Jesus arrive. And even then, he wept. Not because he had failed, but because he felt the weight of delay. Then, in a voice that cracked the tomb, he called Lazarus forth, not to restore what was, but to reveal what could be, when divine timing and divine glory collide. That story was not about resurrection alone. It was about how waiting can become the stage for wonder. And so it is with you. You've been waiting for healing, waiting for justice, waiting for people to see the truth, and in that waiting you've cried tears that no one understood. But just as the death of Lazarus made room for a greater miracle, the death of your expectations is making room for the fullness of God's glory to be revealed. God's delay also protects you. If he moved too soon, you might build your life on partial healing or shallow understanding. But when he waits, it is because he is creating depth within you. Spiritual maturity is never microwaved. It is formed in the furnace of unanswered prayers. He is making your roots go deep, because the higher he plans to take you, the deeper you must be anchored. And he knows that what comes quickly can also fall quickly. So he waits. And not only is the delay preparing you, it's preparing them. Those who hurt you, those who lied, walked away, manipulated your kindness. They think they got away with it. But God is letting their pride build just high enough for everyone to see, so that when he humbles them, his justice is public and unmistakable. Proverbs 16:18 reminds us, "Pride goes before destruction, a haughty spirit before a fall." The delay is the setup. The fall is certain. The glory is coming. In your waiting, keep your hands clean. keep your heart soft. Do not become like those who wounded you. The delay may test your character, but it will also prove it. And when God moves, when He restores, vindicates, elevates, you'll know why He waited. You'll see that the delay was not punishment. It was preparation for a testimony far greater than your pain. So, don't curse the delay. Don't give up just because the answer hasn't come yet. The longer the silence, the louder the glory when He speaks. And when He does, everything will shift, not because you forced it, but because you trusted Him enough to wait. The wicked prosper for a season, but God's hand is final. One of the most unsettling aspects of life is witnessing the apparent success of the wicked. We see people who lie, manipulate, and harm others walk boldly through life, untouched and applauded. Their lives appear glittering with success, while those who walk in truth suffer in silence. It feels unjust, and yet this dilemma is not new. It echoed in the hearts of prophets long before you were born. Psalm 73 is the cry of a man who observed this very phenomenon. For I envied the arrogant when I saw the prosperity of the wicked. They have no struggles, their bodies are healthy and strong. Psalm 73, 3-4. Asaph, the writer, is overwhelmed. He's faithful, and yet he's afflicted. Meanwhile, the wicked flourish. But then something shifts in verse 17. Till I entered the sanctuary of God, then I understood their final destiny. That one line changes everything. Yes, the wicked may prosper for a time. Yes, their lives may look easy. But appearances are not the end of the story. God has not forgotten. He has simply allowed them to walk further into their own illusion. That is the mercy before the judgment. He gives them rope, not to elevate them, but because they are choosing to hang their own fate with it. He waits, not because He is powerless, but because His final word is irreversible. You must never confuse the patience of God with approval. Ecclesiastes 8:11 warns us, when the sentence for a crime is not quickly carried out, people's hearts are filled with schemes to do wrong. But judgment delayed is not judgment denied. It is merely building momentum. Like a wave held back, it grows stronger. When it finally breaks, it will not miss a single target. Those who wounded you may appear untouchable now. They might have surrounded themselves with false comfort, fake friends, or even spiritual masks. But God sees beneath it all. There is no mask thick enough to hide a heart from Him. Hebrews 4:13 says, "Nothing in all creation is hidden from God's sight. Everything is uncovered and laid bare before the eyes of Him to whom we must give account." That's the mask that when God's hand moves, it moves without error. His judgment is exact. His justice is perfect. And perhaps the most tragic irony is this: many who laughed at your pain will one day cry in secret. They will sit in rooms where their own decisions torment them. They will eat the fruit of the seeds they planted in your life, because while God is slow to anger, He is never absent from justice. Galatians 6:7 echoes eternally. Do not be deceived. God is not mocked. A man reaps what he sows. Their wealth, their laughter, their pride. It is seasonal, but God's word is eternal. And when He says He will repay, He means it. Not because you need revenge, but because truth demands reckoning. His hand may not come when you expect it, but it will come, and when it does, it will be a response not just to their wickedness, but to your faithfulness. Because He not only judges their wrongs, He honors your endurance. So don't envy the wicked, don't let their temporary comfort rob you of eternal perspective. Their season will end, but your reward has no expiration. If you keep trusting, God will vindicate you publicly. There is a kind of justice that is silent, and then there is the kind that is loud. so loud that even your enemies can't ignore it. That second kind, that is what God is preparing for those who keep trusting Him when it hurts the most. Vindication is not merely the removal of shame, it is the reversal of it. It is when God takes everything that was used to humiliate you and turns it into the very thing that elevates you. You are to be the one He sees. You are to be the one He allays. We live in a world that delights in watching people fall, especially those who walk in truth. People laugh when you're hurting, and they whisper when you're broken. They turn your tears into gossip and your silence into assumptions. And in the middle of it all, you're tempted to explain yourself, to defend your character, to fight for your reputation. But God says, "Be still, I will fight for you." Exodus 14:14. Your job is not to correct every lie or fix every misunderstanding. Your job is to keep trusting the one who never forgets. God has a history of vindicating His people in public, especially those who trust Him in private. Especially those who trust Him in private. He was thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, imprisoned on false charges, yet He kept trusting. And when His moment came, it didn't just restore Him, it elevated Him in the sight of those who once buried Him. His brothers had to bow before the very one they betrayed. Why? Because God doesn't just vindicate quietly, He makes sure it's seen. When God vindicates, He doesn't just restore your name, He restores your honor. He prepares a table before you in the presence of your enemies, Psalm 23:5, not in their absence, in their presence. That means the same people who misunderstood you, mocked you, or manipulated you will witness your rising, not because you wished evil upon them, but because you trusted God through it all. Vindication is heaven's response to earthly betrayal. It is when the truth that was buried is resurrected in power. It is when the crown that was stolen is returned by divine hand. But it only comes to those who wait, who believe, who refuse to stoop low even when they've been dragged through the dirt. You might be thinking, but no one believes me, they believe them, and that may be true. But when God vindicates, belief shifts. The crowd that once cheered for your fall will stand stunned at your comeback. The people who dismissed you will say, "Surely the Lord was with them." And the best part, you won't have to say a word. God will make your silence louder than their lies. Isaiah 54:17 declares, "No weapon that is formed against thee shall prosper, and every tongue that shall rise against thee in judgment thou shalt condemn." Did you catch that? Not some weapons, not most tongues, everyone. But here's the catch. The power comes through trust. If you break, if you lash out, if you compromise your integrity, you forfeit the reward. But if you trust Him and stay faithful in the fire, your vindication will not just be personal, it will be divine. So, walk with your head high, not in pride, but in peace. Your story isn't over, your pain is not in vain, and your reward is being written in heaven's ink. The God who watched you weep will be the same God who will make the world watch you rise, not because of who you are, but because of who He is. Heaven is about to speak for you. You have cried in silence. You have endured in shadows. You have walked through storms without applause, faced betrayal without revenge, and stood in faith while everything around you tried to shake it. But God never missed a moment. He never ignored a tear. He never abandoned a single breath of your pain. Every cry was counted, every injustice recorded, every betrayal weighed on divine scales. And while the world believed you were forgotten, God was writing a response. One not built in noise, but in power. one that doesn't just soothe your heart, it shifts your life. Judgment is coming, not as punishment for you, but as correction for what was done to you. And it won't arrive quietly. It will come with divine clarity, divine justice, and divine reversal. The lies will be exposed, the silence will be shattered. The tables will turn, and when they do, you won't need to raise your voice. God will raise your name. But here's the condition that carries it all. Keep trusting Him. Not once, not for a moment, but continually, relentlessly, even when it hurts, even when you're misunderstood, even when it looks like evil is winning, because the victory is not always seen in the beginning. It is often hidden in faith. And that kind of faith, it moves heaven. So hold on, stay steady, keep your heart pure. You are not abandoned, you are seen, you are known, and in the fullness of time you will be vindicated, not just in your soul, but in the very eyes of those who doubted you. Heaven has not missed your tears, and it will not miss its moment to speak on your behalf.